Okay, I have a quick question. Have you ever played the game Crazy Chicken Shooter Edition for the PlayStation 5? Of course you haven't. But believe it or not, it's a real game that was rated by the ESRB and sold to anybody who might want to buy it, with its beautifully jarring off-center text, PS2-era 3D chicken models, wrong controller images on the back of the box. Really, it's something. And the gameplay is exactly what you're expecting, or maybe even a little worse. You just shoot chickens, and you can do pretty much all there is to do in the game in about 15 to 20 minutes. It's a bad game, but maybe that's its appeal, a cheap, funny gag gift or a conversation starter. It's hard to believe that anybody would look at this game on a store shelf expecting an amazing piece of software, and it's hard to believe that you would go into a store and actually see a game like this. But when you log into an online storefront and start browsing some of the games that they have, it's a completely different story. What the fuck? In 2021, the gaming industry made $60.4 billion in revenue, which, to give you some perspective, is more than the movie industry and the music industry made in 2021 combined. Video games make a lot of money. And just like anything that makes a lot of money, the video game industry has its fair share of bad actors. Whether it be developers taking advantage of passionate young talent, corporate bigwigs selling a game at full price and then locking a bunch of content behind microtransactions, or the people who make things like this. Ninja Bread Man, at first glance, looks like a fairly competent kids game for the Wii. Unlike Crazy Chicken Shooter Edition, it has some pretty nice art on the front, and everything on the back of the game's box looks professionally done. But when you start up the game, you'll quickly realize that it's not exactly as polished or cool as the box art made it look. Ninja Bread Man is a platformer collectathon that is full of bugs, questionable design decisions, and really any semblance of a good game. For some, it's considered to be one of the worst games of all time, but the box art makes it look like a completely normal game, a picture-perfect piece of shovelware. But what is shovelware anyways? Techopedia.com puts it best, defining shovelware as a derogatory term used for software that has either been quickly developed without regard to quality or function and features, or software that has been forced on customers, such as those that are preloaded on laptops or smartphones by their respective carriers. In the video game market, it takes a lot of different forms, like the deceptively cute Ninja Bread Man, or maybe it's a game with a popular license attached to it, like the infamously bad Superman 64, or maybe it's one of those games that markets itself as having a lot of different games that ultimately are all mediocre at best. It's a problem that faces many different industries too. I mean, when you see a new Disney movie coming out, you'll almost always see these weird knockoffs of that movie available online. You could speculate that these movies are just coincidences, or heavily inspired by their Disney counterpart, but you could also speculate that they're meant for confused parents who are just about to ruin their kid's day. But let's be real, unlike the movie industry, the gaming industry and the marketplaces that participate in it are presented with some much more unique challenges. Hear me out. A great example of one of these unique challenges is the game Anubis 2, which, like Ninja Bread Man, was a platformer collectathon for the Wii. That's a game where you jump through levels and collect stuff. If you look at the boxes for these games side by side, you wouldn't really guess that they have any other similarities, aside from their genre and that they have the same developer. But when you look at the gameplay side by side, you'll notice that they share a lot of qualities. Just like the game Trixie in Toyland, or the game Rock'n'Roll Adventures. Similar games with different assets made by the same developer. The developer that made these games, Data Design Interactive, were notorious online for making these unfun, samey games, with popular online personalities like the Game Grumps even commenting on their similarities.
Ninja Bread Man.
I'm sorry?
Does this music sound familiar? Should.
Is this the exact same music from fucking Trixie and Toyland?
No, yes.
So yeah, we... Oh my god! So
wait, check this out.
To the unsuspecting parent, these were just super normal Wii games. It's not surprising too, the Nintendo Wii had a lot of horrible, low-effort games with surprisingly good box art. It wasn't like Crazy Chicken Shooter Edition's intentionally horrible cover. You know that you're gonna get a bad game out of this one, but it's a little harder to tell that this is going to be equally as horrible. But now, the Wii is officially retro, and if you walk into your local retailer to browse the games that they have, you won't find too many of these low-effort games. The market is completely different. We live in a day and age where less expensive digital-only consoles are a mainstay, and around 90% of console games don't even have a physical release. But that doesn't mean shovelware has just disappeared. In fact, this shift to digital-only releases has just transformed it into a completely different monster. But it's a monster these storefronts can defeat if they understand the problem. Here's an experiment that you can do right now. Go to your favorite online game store of choice, any of them, and browse over to the new games section. When you pull it up, there's a good chance that you'll find a good example of shovelware. In fact, if you find one and go to the developer's page, they might also have a lot of very similar looking games, almost as if they're making the same type of game over and over again, an asset flip. This is a really common type of shovelware, where a developer buys or contracts somebody to make assets for them, and they essentially make the same game over and over again with a new coat of paint, kind of like Ninja Bread Man and all of those weird Wii games. But unlike the Wii days, it's a lot easier to make your own game. Developers can use game engines like Unity or Game Maker, go into their asset store, buy a bunch of art or even specific types of game engines, and pop out a new game in a day, causing a flood of bad games. It's been a problem for a while on these online stores, and you can find stories online of storefronts removing hundreds of games from single developers at a time because they were, in all essence, just a bunch of baity, low-effort games. But, and this is a big but, it needs to be like bolded, italicized, and underlined. This is important. What if I told you that people are actually buying these games, and there's a market for them? A subset of the gaming consumer base who actively seeks out shovelware, buys it with their hard-earned cash, and most of the time completes these games. A subset of people who aren't buying these games because they're bad and it's quirky and fun to talk about, and they're not parents who are unknowingly buying these horrible games for their kids, although I'm sure that still happens from time to time. This is a group who plays these games for what they get out of the game, rather than how much they're going to enjoy them. Trophy hunters are a surprisingly big market. You see, when you do something cool or significant in a game, like defeating a difficult boss, you'll most likely get an achievement for it. The achievement is then added to a score on your online profile. So for example, on PlayStation games you get trophies, and on Xbox games you get points towards a gamer score. There's a subset of people who try and get all the trophies for every single game that they buy, and then there's some people who buy games specifically because they offer a lot of trophies. If you look up easy PlayStation trophies on YouTube, you'll find a good amount of channels who upload daily, sometimes even a few times a day, giving suggestions on games that offer easy gold and platinum trophies, which are supposed to be the most difficult to get. And I wouldn't exactly say this is a bad thing, but it creates this extra layer of complexity to this problem. So here's the big question. How do you make it so consumers see shovelware less when they're on an online storefront, while also making it so these trophy hunters are able to easily find these games on their own? Or in other words, how do we prevent people from seeing or accidentally buying bad games, while still giving them the option to see and buy these bad games? Well, it's likely that we'll find our answer on the storefront for the console that doesn't have any achievements or trophies, the Nintendo Switch eShop. When you open up the eShop, you're greeted with a featured tab, which pretty much just advertises Nintendo games and other wildly popular games. On the left, there's a few other tabs like the recent releases, bestsellers, and coming soon, but they're automated rather than curated, so they don't exactly help you find a good game, unless the game that you want is like popular. So the only tab that really grabs me is the Great Deals tab, and this tab shows every single sale going on in the Nintendo Switch store. All of them. So that's pretty much it. You're left with a store that only shows you new games, games on sale, and popular games. So if you want to find a cool RPG to play, or a racing game or something like that, you're gonna have to do your own research because you can't even view games by genre. I mean, I can imagine that there are so many cool indie games just waiting to be played that you'll never see just by browsing this store, and it makes it harder for consumers to make a good decision on a game. There's a lot of shovelware on the Switch, and this marketplace makes it easy for it to be visible. But hey, at least you can still pick up Mario Kart 8 for $60. The eShop is too simple, and honestly, it just sucks, especially when you contrast it to something like the PlayStation Store on the PS5. When you open it up, you'll likely see some suggested games, a banner for a sale, and a list of new games. This is where you're going to find the shovelware. But the coolest thing about the store is at the top of the screen in the Collections tab, which houses various lists of curated games that fit different tastes. This curation is a great way to mitigate the shovelware problem, while also making it easy for trophy hunters to buy games like this, I guess. However, these curated lists often include a lot of popular games and leave out some hidden gems. The PlayStation Store offers a good amount of variety. You can still look at automated lists like the bestsellers and the new games, but you'll also find a lot of curation that can help you, the consumer, make a well-informed decision on a good game. They also have genre lists, which is like the bare minimum, but it should be noted, I guess. Then we have Steam, the online PC storefront. When you open it up, you're usually greeted by a banner for a sale or for a cool new release, and as you scroll down, you'll see some featured and suggested games, along with lists of the top sellers. At first glance, these options are kind of like the Nintendo Switch eShop, but underneath the surface, it's the complete opposite. When you open up the category section, you're greeted with this insane list of so many genres and types of games. It's crazy. When you click on one, you're greeted with some featured games and some tags that you can use to narrow down exactly what you want. Then, when you find a game, you can look at reviews by other players to get a general consensus of if the game is going to be good. But Steam has one thing that's uncommon in other stores, something that you wouldn't find in the PlayStation or Switch stores, a consumer-friendly refund policy. You see, after you buy a game on Steam, you have a 2-hour gameplay refund window. If you buy a game that looked cool on the Switch or PlayStation that turned out to be some piece of shovelware, it's a lot harder to get a refund. Most of the time, you just can't. But it also creates a problem where developers who make small 1 or 2 hour games can be exploited, because believe it or not, there are good games that can be beaten in an hour or two, and people sometimes abuse this system, a lot to the detriment of indie developers. Despite likely having more shovelware than the Switch eShop and the PlayStation stores combined, Steam makes it the easiest for a consumer to make a well-informed purchase. Which brings us to a picture-perfect world. What would an online game storefront look like in a picture-perfect world where nobody ever accidentally buys a shitty shovelware game? It would probably be a mixture of the PlayStation and Steam storefronts, where you take a clean collection-based UI of the PlayStation Store and mash it together with the hyper-specific category-based system that Steam offers. A perfect store would offer a refund policy on their games, an easy refund policy, where you don't really have to email anybody if you played the game under a certain amount of time. It would look nothing like the Switch store, and in this perfect world, you would probably get a can of compressed air to fix the drift on your Joy-Cons too. It would be consumer friendly, and it would be easy to buy a good game. There's always going to be pros and cons, and who knows, maybe there's never going to be a perfect way to solve this problem. I mean, actually uploading a game and selling it on these storefronts isn't the easiest thing in the world either, so these shovelware developers really are willing to do quite a lot without actually doing quite a lot. But let's be real, compared to mobile gaming marketplaces, console and PC gaming is doing pretty good. Thanks for watching.